here tonight as a board member for the CyberSecurity Council of Arizona, and I'm here with our board chair, Rachel Hartley, with WorkLife Security, and she will introduce herself a little bit more on all of our panelists here. So we're really excited to bring you some cool information about a topic that matters to all of us, whether we're at school, or in our homes, or as we're thinking about the careers that we want to do, protecting our communities, protecting businesses, protecting our enterprises. So we're really excited to bring that to you tonight. So I have just a couple of really quick cybersecurity related questions, and they're all numbers, so they're all really big numbers on this, so I'm just not asking a couple. So $5.2 trillion. What do you think that has to do with cybersecurity? $1 trillion. Anybody? So it's the amount by which the economy could actually grow if we improved cybersecurity in a really significant way. Okay, how many of you are entrepreneurs or think you want to be an entrepreneur? Start your own business, do anything like that? One? Okay, good. Well, so 43% is the percentage of cyber attacks on small businesses. So even more important that we are cyber secure not only in our large enterprises, but also in our very small businesses. And 60% is the rate at which small businesses fail after they've been hacked. So it's a really serious consideration. How about 96,000? Who remembers hearing about the hack of the Flagstaff School District just a couple months back? Anybody remember that, right? So that was the number of students that were out of school and affected by a hack in the school district. All right, last one, before I introduce our panelists. 80%. Anybody? Okay. That's the percent of hacks, more or less, that are caused by human error. All inadvertently, sometimes advertently. So tonight's conversation, you're going to into those roles and help people get into those roles that their companies today, as well as other questions about cybersecurity and the kinds of issues and opportunities that they deal with inside their companies. And they're going to have a great opportunity for a Q&A. So what I'd like to do is introduce very briefly our panelists, and then they will also introduce themselves more to you in just a minute. So as I mentioned, I'm with my colleague and the board chair for the Cybersecurity Council of Arizona, Rachel Hartley. Next to her is Nicole Valenzuela, and she is with Salt River Project. Next to her is David Hernandez, and he is with American Express Global Travel Services, also for those of you who might be from the Phoenix Union High School District. He is a not so long ago Phoenix Union High School District alum. Next to him is Sean Chakrabarty, also with American Express Global Travel Services. And next to him is Parker Horsch, who is a student at the Phoenix Coding Academy, which is part of the Phoenix Union High School District. And he is also an apprentice with Kudelski Cybersecurity. And last but very not least is our moderator for the panel, so the woman who is controlling the show tonight. And this is Anissa Botros, and she will be managing our panel. So Anissa, take it away.
So if the panelists want to go ahead and go through, tell us about yourself, say your name again, tell us where you work and what you do at your job.
So I am Rachel Hartley. I'm the founder of Recruitment Security, which is a recruiting and staffing agency focused on cybersecurity. So I solve the immediate hiring needs of my clients, and then pro bono I do a lot of stuff like this, helping to spread the word about careers in cybersecurity. And I'm just really glad to be here and see so many smiling faces.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nicole Valenzuela. I work at Salt River Project. For those of you who know, it's the power and water company here in Arizona. I work in cybersecurity on the business awareness team, and I am in charge of our security awareness program for all of the enterprise. So basically, I am in charge of the training and compliance, managing the human risk. As Kathleen mentioned, about 80% of all attacks are related to human error. Sometimes it's unintentional, completely by accident, and sometimes it's, we have some insider threats. So those are some of the things that I try to mitigate as the person who runs our security awareness program. So I do a lot of interacting with all the business areas of SRPs, anyone from the line crews who work outside and climb up on the poles to our IT department, our developers, our HR group. So all of the employees I interact with and teach them everything they need to know about cybersecurity to protect SRP, our customers, and also the power grid.
Cool. David Hernandez. I am a former cybersecurity person to like now really weird things. So I used to be, I graduated from Tech High School. That's where I first started doing the good guy, bad guy hacker stuff. Started just breaking into things, stuff that I own, of course, which we can talk about. Eventually moved over to managing and educating people in cybersecurity at a cool facility called the Arizona Cyber Warfare Range. And then I moved over to American Express Global Business Travel as a security analyst. So where I used to be the bad guy, hacker, good guy, right? I became the security analyst where I was actually stopping the bad guys, detecting them so that they would not compromise our company or other users. And then right after I started doing a lot of that stuff, I was like, okay, maybe let's do more. And I got a recent promotion as a security engineer. So what do I do now is I help the people detect bad guys. I build the infrastructure, the tools that the analysts are going to be using to detect the bad guys so that we don't have as many bad guys. But that being said, I still need to know how the bad guys are going to attack us so that I can implement the infrastructure correctly. So that's a little bit what I do.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Sean Chakrabarty. I'm the Director of Security Operations for American Express Global Business Travel. So very similar to the description that David just gave about him being an analyst. He was on my team doing that investigation and analysis of alerts that are coming into my department. So we've set up all these great detection mechanisms to go and look for malicious or anomalous activity that then an analyst needs to go through and determine, is this actually malicious? Is this somebody trying to do something nefarious within my environment? And then, of course, we are also empowered to stop that activity. We go through and put in blocks in place. We isolate endpoints. We have a lot of different capabilities for going and stopping somebody that is doing something bad in our environment. So I've been at this for specifically in a security role for over 15 years, but I've been working in technology for over 20 years with mostly a networking background and growing from there. So I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm Parker Borsch. I'm currently a junior at Phoenix Coding Academy, and I'm an apprentice at Kudelski Security. So they're putting us through a 4-year apprenticeship and preparing us to be cybersecurity analysts. So they're putting us through all the different elements of the company. Like right now I'm working at the help desk, but then they're going to cycle us through things that lead up to being a cybersecurity analyst.
Next, I'm just going to ask the panelists about their pathway to cybersecurity. So if you guys could all go through and tell us about your education, what post-secondary education you have, training, what skill set is important for your position.
So obviously I'm still a high school student, but I started working with cybersecurity, I guess, when I kind of started tinkering with Kali Linux, which is a popular cybersecurity tool. And that really got me excited about the field, just tinkering with all the different tools that they have and working with that in my house. And then finding Phoenix Coding Academy, which is a great opportunity to learn in a more professional environment and with a teacher who's worked in the field before. And it's been a great experience. And then that just led to Kudelski Security, where I'm still learning.
So this question goes really far back. I'm getting pretty old. So mid-90s, early 90s, I was running bulletin board systems in my mom's basement, basically. Monochromatic screens where we were dialing in on 300 baud modems, and we were going through and playing video games with, a very small handful of people. That worked its way into, next thing I know, I'm an overnight Unix administrator for Insight.com, because we just started standing up Unix servers, and actually that was at CompUSA, where I was fixing computers and standing up Linux servers and Unix servers in the tech shop through file servers that, we might have towed the line a couple of times between good guys and bad guys, but we weren't doing anything totally, completely nefarious. But it kind of built from there. Eventually, after getting into a network operations center, at that time, there were no dedicated security teams. There were some, but most companies didn't have a dedicated security team. It was IT took care of security, or the networking team took care of security, whoever was the most technical bid. So I got the nod to be the security person. I didn't attend college. Most of my education came through certifications and working in the workforce.
So I have a similar background as well. I started out very young in my parents' garage as just a bunch of computer equipment that was either broken or that I had pulled money together to build. So eventually I just started building my own computer lab, and I talked to people in the industry about what was in the real world, what did I need to learn. Eventually I just started watching YouTube a ton. Every single day was just YouTube video, YouTube video, YouTube video, and that was my form of education almost all through the end of high school. Eventually, I graduated high school and decided to do a little bit of the university. I progressed very slowly in the university and didn't actually finish it. What I ended up doing is I ended up participating in a lot of the curriculum writing that was built for the colleges, and they would show me what was involved in the curriculum, what did I need to know for industry. Another piece of me, I did come from a low-income family, so I didn't have the money to actually pay for college. Unfortunately, I wasn't fortunate to pay for a four-year college, nor was I looking necessarily to pay lots of money for college. And not because I wasn't looking for scholarships, it's because I was a little too dumb to actually get scholarships. And you are, just you being here means that you're a lot brighter than the average teenager, so thank you for coming. But continuing again, I went back to YouTube videos, continue to learn what does industry need, what do I need to learn. It was just honestly just YouTube videos. I had the drive to continue learning about cybersecurity, and eventually I was brought up into volunteering to cybersecurity events, getting involved with different cybersecurity groups. I was volunteering, and they were also happy to teach me cybersecurity. It's an amazing community now. It used to be an amazing community then. Everybody's so willing to share knowledge with you. So get involved in there. And eventually, after I started volunteering in a lot of the security events, I started networking with people, and they were like, you're pretty smart. Like, you should come and do cybersecurity with us. So I was like, okay. So I got involved with several security groups, several grants with the NSA and the NSF, and that led me to, again, getting more involved in the cybersecurity community. That's actually where I met my boss here. Was him going to a security event, and he was showing us how to build a corporate network environment. And again, through that same knowledge, I asked, hey, you guys looking for people? And he was like, yeah, we're looking. Got an interview and applied and got the position. Eventually, again, I have that drive to learn. In high school, I was not the guy that would go to those parties on the weekends. I was very introverted. So I always liked learning, whether it was a book, a manual, or YouTube. I always had the drive to learn. And even now, it's still the same thing. Now that I'm at a corporate company, I have the ability, I have somebody to pay for my college, pay for my education, my certifications, and so that's how I'm continuing to educate myself. So that's the story of my life.
I have a very, very unique journey to cybersecurity. I've only been in cybersecurity for the last year, but I've been in SRP for 11. I started as a high school intern, and I was basically doing clerical work, administrative work for the department that I worked in was line asset management. And that's where I started. When I graduated, they unfortunately could not keep me as a college intern, so I was forced to look for a full-time position in SRP. Luckily, I found one just at the end of summer. Got hired on in our graphic records department. I went to ASU. I got my degree in communications and psychology, which is a little interesting being around cybersecurity, but I'll get back to that. So I went to school And I moved around to a couple different areas, got my master's, and I had my master's in business administration. And I was looking for a job that was no longer entry level. So I was still in a position that did not require a degree, but here I was with a master's. So I was getting a little discouraged, and I took a leap of faith when I saw a cybersecurity analyst position open in the business awareness team. I thought at the very least it'd be a really great interview experience. You know, it was going to take me out of my comfort zone, and I was going to have to answer questions that maybe I didn't really know the answers or how to answer them. So I went for it, and luckily they were looking for someone who would run their security awareness program. And for someone to do that, you need really strong communication skills. You need to be able to basically take all these technical concepts in terms of cybersecurity and be able to explain them and have other people who may not know anything about cybersecurity and explain that to them in words that they understand. So that's exactly what they were looking for, and I had all those skills. And they were confident enough in the fact that they knew they could teach me everything that I need to know about cybersecurity. So I've been doing a lot of certification trainings. You mentioned there's so many certifications out there that can teach you everything you need to know. And also, I have that drive to learn. I want to learn, I want to know, and I'm slowly but surely becoming an expert at what I do. And so I'm very fortunate that my team and my manager took that. They had to have faith in me. They believed that I could do it, and here I am. I'm running the security awareness program for SRP. So very unique journey, but very, very fortunate that this is where I ended up. And I love it. It's a great field to be in. It's ever changing. It's exciting. And I'm continuing to learn and grow every single day. So it's a great opportunity.
That's great. There's so many interesting and unique stories in cybersecurity. It's one of the reasons I love focusing on it as a recruiter. I think it's really a career where your capabilities can create your career. You know, in a lot of times there's the check boxes where you have to have this or you have to have that. You can really create and hack your own path in this career. And it's about the being curious and wanting to learn.
For the business panelists, I just want to ask, for the teens, what can they be doing right now to get into cybersecurity, whether that will be job shadowing, going to events like these, going on tours?
Being here is huge. You could be anywhere else in the world tonight, but you chose to be here, so you're definitely on the right road. There's so many different internships, and I can just speak for SRP. We have a cybersecurity rotating internship program that my manager actually started. We are in our first year. We've had 2 rotating analysts that go to Australia Mountain Community College, I believe. And they have been with us for a little over a year now, and they're basically getting to do rotations through various cybersecurity departments at SRP as well as some other IT areas. So they are getting to learn a lot. And like I said, this is the first year that we've had this program, but we are looking to continue to grow the program, and we would like to at some point extend it to high school interns as well. So if any chance you can find some sort of internship, job shadowing is another great opportunity. But my manager and I would love to speak to anyone who is interested in the cybersecurity internship program at SRP. So if that's something that you guys think may be interesting to you down the road, please talk to me after, and I can get you in touch with my manager or me directly. So that's one really great way that you can start.
Watch all the YouTube. So, as mentioned, I have already, that's pretty much how I got all my education. Now, sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes they tell you that you open up a command prompt and just type in hack, that you now become a hacker. And so, just educate yourself as much as possible with all the resources that are given to you. And I'm not just saying YouTube, but all the blogs. Who likes reading? Okay, my hand's down here because I have a hard time reading, but I love reading everything about cybersecurity. Read what you're passionate about. If you don't want to go into security, fine, but be somebody that is useful to society. Be somebody that you're going to love within yourself, so educate yourself in whatever you are passionate about. Read the books about, whether it is English books or it is computer science books, security books, read them all. Read all the blogs that are out there, specifically in security. One of my favorite blogs is Krebs on Security. If I want to read the latest and greatest news about cybersecurity, who got hacked, what photos were like shown out in the internet, or who got compromised, there's a cool website called Morningstar Security News. They're very educational. They're not inappropriate or anything like that. You all can read out of them. And then there's also a very social networking community that you have to be very familiar with, but also be careful with. It's called Reddit. Who here is familiar with that community? Okay, so cool. We're getting more people in the community. Get involved in the cybersecurity subreddits. There's people in those that love sharing computer knowledge with you. One of my favorite subreddits is called Home Lab. It's just people showing off what they have in their home lab, what they've created, and just like to brag about it. And you get to learn. I've actually based some of my own network equipment on other people's labs. It's just sharing knowledge with each other. And finally, get out to the security meetups. There's several on the internet. I know this one today, he was on Eventbrite. There's also meetup.com. And then look at what the local news companies are publishing about events. Without getting very political, I really don't know which ones you mentioned, but look at what's out there. Actually ask your parents to show you, hey, where can I find events? Almost figures. Look at ask your parents what events are going on in the community. Ask them to help you find different events. If you're bored at home, you're doing something wrong. You should not be bored at home. There's so much and so many things for you to do to educate yourself that if you're getting bored at home, you're doing something wrong. So make sure, get out there. Those are the top 3 things: YouTube, blogs, reading, /reading, and events and meetups.
So how many of you are going to go to CactusCon this year? How many of you know what CactusCon is? CactusCon is a free security conference that happens every year in Phoenix. It's local grassroots. A few guys that I used to work with at Level 3 Communications, a couple guys from PayPal. It's coming up at the beginning of December. You can still register. Like I said, it's totally free. It's 2 days. It's at the Mesa Convention Center. Really fantastic information. Not only really fantastic information, but also really good opportunities for meeting people in this industry in Phoenix. So I encourage all of you to go. There's also really great Cactus Kids part of the con as well. If you want to go and learn some coding, if you want to do robotics, etc., there's a lot of hands-on things that they'll do. But really, the talks that they have, they bring in some really big names in security to go and talk about what's going on in security right now. I think that's a very easy, free thing. Granted, it only happens once a year. If you want to be using some resources right now, inteltechniques.com has a great podcast. CyberAces is free. There's a lot of really good resources, as David was talking about, on the internet that you can spend to really learn the insides and outs of this industry. So if you have a passion for it, get on there and start reading everything, start listening to all the podcasts, and go to CactusCon. I think it's a really good conference.
I'll just say, do things that make you uncomfortable. So when I was applying for Kudelski Security, I really did not think that I was qualified or that I would get the job or the apprenticeship. But I didn't know what they were looking for, and really the initiative I had shown with my own learning was exactly what they were looking for, and I was actually hired.
If you want to let us know how you got into Phoenix Coding Academy and what steps you took to get your apprenticeship, like how you found the job.
So Phoenix Coding Academy has an interview process where you just talk about maybe a project you've done in the past. And I told them about a roller coaster I had made where I had used Arduinos to time for a science project. And they introduced the Kudelski Security Apprenticeship through Mr. Andrews, who is my cybersecurity teacher. So there's 3 pathways at Phoenix Coding Academy. It's the cybersecurity, engineering, and computer programming. And I chose the cybersecurity path, and they introduced it through that. And then there was just an application process. You have to have a GPA not that high. They're just looking for people who are ready to learn and willing to put in the work and the commitment for the 4-year apprenticeship. And then they had us come in and do a formal interview. And then they narrowed that down to a couple people, and we went in and actually worked with them for a couple hours one day. And they chose 2 people based off that from my school.
Now that we know how to get into cybersecurity, if you guys can let us know why it's important to be the field and why you personally chose.
So I personally chose the field because it's fun for me and I'm passionate about it. And I knew that it's something I'd have fun doing. Because I had been doing it since I was 7 or 8, working with computers. And really it's important to enjoy what you do. It's not necessarily going to be fun all the time because you're going to be challenged, especially as you start working, but you have to be passionate about it and enjoy it.
So 2 decades ago, I had to pay rent, so I got a job. That's how I ended up in this field. No, I was passionate about technology and security. I've been a geek my entire life. I love to break things and put them back together and see how they work and things like that. It has led me to this path. You know, the things that I'm passionate about have led me to this path. I can't say that I even chose to be coming down this road, or I could have seen this 20 years ago anyways. But in talking to you about why you should get into this, well, of course, you know, we talk about the importance of cybersecurity in our community and in our world. We talk about this massive cyber war that is going on, and we are seeing it. We talk about cybersecurity impacts everyone and is part of everything that we do now, just right down to you using your computer at home and not giving your password out to people, or not compromising your own privacy. I mean, that's why this is important, and that's why getting into this industry is important as well.
Can you repeat the question for me again?
Yes. I asked why it's important to pursue a career in cybersecurity and why you personally chose this field.
I don't know how I can make it so that it is important. It is important because I'll get back to that. So why I chose it, see, this is where I want to get cocky and say cybersecurity. I did not choose cybersecurity. Security chose me. Totally joking. No, as I mentioned, I'm very passionate about learning. I just want to learn, and wherever I can find a place that I can learn the most, I'll dive into it and learn as much as I can about it. I personally enjoy it. I think it's fun all the time, even though it does get stressful from time to time. At the end of the day, I know that I love what I'm doing. I've talked to people, and you've probably been talked to some of your peers or older peers that said, "Oh, I hate going to my job," or "I want to get a new job." I love going to my job every single day of the week. As mentioned, I have my challenges, but I never will say that I hate my job. I love going to it every single day of the week. Now, as to why you should get into cybersecurity, because what I just said, it's super awesome. I love it. The communities are great. Everybody's so willing to educate yourself, and there is so much to learn. There are so many people just say cybersecurity. You mostly just think hackers and non-hackers, and there's a lot more to that. I'll actually save that for later. But there is so much that you can do in cybersecurity. It's not even funny. Even if you're not necessarily doing cybersecurity, you're always contributing to cybersecurity in one way or another. So it's an evolving field that will never die down, and you'll always have fun in it.
And for me, I would say what I'm most passionate about is helping people. That's been something that just makes you feel good. You know, my whole life I've really always tried to help people as much as I could, and that's exactly what my job is today. It's extremely rewarding to engage with the employees at SRP and have them say, "Oh my gosh, I need to start thinking about this at home." So not only am I teaching them about how to be secure at work and protect SRP and our data, but also they take that home with them and they keep themselves safe, they keep their personal data safe, they keep their family safe. You know, it's really the most common thing that employees will talk about is how their parents or their grandparents were not, you know, they didn't grow up with technology, so they don't know anything about computers and internet and all that stuff. So they are able to take the stuff that I'm teaching them and talking to them about every day and take that to their families and help, educate their grandparents, their parents on the threats that are out there and, how they could be at risk themselves in their personal life. So it's just really fun. It's really rewarding. I get to do, things that people probably don't think about when it comes to cybersecurity, but like I have to engage employees, and people, employees at SRP don't necessarily care about cybersecurity. They're like, that's not my job, that's cyber's job, I don't need to worry about that. But realistically, it's everyone's job to worry about cybersecurity. We already mentioned how, 80% of attacks start with human interaction. Phishing emails are really the most common way that attacks happen. So I can do stuff like this. I get to create comics about cybersecurity, and it's ways that I can engage employees and get them to understand what we are trying to explain to them. So we've created comics, about various cybersecurity best practices and how they can, what they should be doing, what they should be thinking about or care about. So this is the stuff that me and my team get to do every day for our job. We work with the graphic designer and we come up with the scripts and the content, and they make it happen for us. And the employees really love it, and it's very rewarding when they give us their feedback and talk about how it's impacted their life, not only at work but at home as well. So that's my take on that.
I love that you brought that.
I couldn't hand these out. I brought lots of extras, so anyone wants to.
So she brought some to share too. The most recent cybersecurity book I bought was on cryptography, and it's a manga content. So it's a thick book, but it's describing basic concepts in a very complex subject. And it's all in comic books, right? So there's a lot of ways to do cybersecurity and to learn cybersecurity. For me, I really hate repetitive tasks, and so many jobs are really, really repetitive. And for me, cybersecurity is about solving problems, and it's just really exciting to be able to create a solution. And so that's what keeps me excited about it.
As a cybersecurity analyst, what's a typical day like in your job?
Every day is very different. I spend a lot of time talking with employees. We will get employees that email us, that call us, asking, saying, hey, I got this phishing email, I got this robocall, what do I do? So I spend a lot of time working with the business areas. I give a lot of presentations. I have to come up with new content, like this kind of stuff. There's just various things that I have to do every day. Is so different. I can't explain what one day looks like. But I did also, I think I mentioned that we're responsible for the anti-phishing drill program, so that's a huge part of what we do is we have to send out phishing drills to the employees to help train them on what to look for so that they don't click on that malicious attachment or they don't enter their credentials and now, a bad guy's got access to our system. So those are the kinds of things that I do every day. But yeah, it's different. There's always something fun and exciting going on. Things are changing. A lot of our stuff is moving into the cloud. So teaching people about cloud security and things that are different that come with moving into the cloud, that's another thing that we're spending a lot of time educating people on. So coming up with new content and making sure that we're making people aware of what they need to look out for is something I do every day.
I used to be part of the 24/7 security operations team. So we work in a SOC, we're in a little room with just a bunch of team members, and our day-to-day life is pretty interesting. It's actually pretty exciting and pretty fun, and sometimes it's not so fun. Starts off because we're a 24/7 team, we hear about what happened before our previous shift. So whether it was the night shift or the day shift, we have 3 shifts. So we get to talk about what's going on. We hand over, hey, this user was hacked, and this is how we dealt with the problem. And then you go about your day. So as a security analyst, what we do is we monitor several tools. We monitor user activity, or suspicious user activity. We monitor for when the antivirus tools trigger on our machines. Let's say our antivirus tool says, hey, this machine has malware on it, it's our job to respond to that threat. So what we do is we isolate the machine so that we can no longer talk to anything else in the network. And then we can decide to investigate the malware even more to see what it's trying to do. Did it do something else that we are not aware of, that the antivirus didn't detect? Or was it just trying to steal some credentials, credit card numbers, and some personal information? And then once we do that, we also issue the user a new machine. We're not going to, if that machine now has malware, we're not going to give that machine back to them. We don't want to risk providing them, risk that malware coming back up, and now all of our company is going to compromise. So we issue a new machine, and it can. Like I said, some of these events are really exciting because there's multiple machines that are getting compromised, or it was because China's trying to hack us and we're seeing them trying to hack our web servers. So we're trying to figure out how to stop that attack from coming. Or there is somebody in Ukraine sending so many emails to our users trying to steal their usernames. So we're scrambling around all over the place trying to stop this from happening. So we have to be very creative in some of the ways that we stop this from happening. And then, again, once at the very end of the day, I hand it over to the next person so that they can continue the investigations. If I did not get done with doing the investigation of the machines that were compromised, or maybe I forgot to issue the user a new machine, I hand it over to the next person, and it just goes on. Every single day, there's a new threat, there's a new issue that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And we monitor several tools, so it never gets boring, and you're always doing something new and exciting.
Yeah, I think David did a really good job of explaining what a day in the life of one of our analysts is like at AMSGBT. For me, being in a leadership role, I'm doing what I can to try and develop the next iteration of the program overall. So we've gotten to this level of maturity. How am I taking the program to the next level of maturity? So, for example, today, and this is going to be the most exciting thing for my day, I met with a former Israeli spy who now runs a threat intelligence company that we will essentially pay him and his team of former NSA agents, former Secret Service agents, etc., to go and search through the dark web looking for threats to my company and our industry. So threat intelligence programs are a big move in the right direction for trying to be more proactive to understanding the threat prior to it actually attacking you. So that was my interesting part of the day. We sat down and we talked about specifically what he and his team would look for on the dark web, on the internet, and how he's going to provide that intelligence back to us so we can go and build our defenses around what threats are actually out there. I can't say that I do that every single day. I wish I was meeting with spies every day, but I'm not. But at the same time, the fact that I'm not doing the same thing every day means that there's always something new happening. So it stays fresh, it stays very interesting as well.
So as an apprentice, it's just constant learning. I feel like I've learned more in 2 months at the apprenticeship than I have in 2 years of high school. Because every day we go in and we're working directly with the people in the help desk right now, and we work with them on all of their tickets and help them solve them. So they have us go on our own computers and try and troubleshoot. And so it's really learning how to problem solve and prepare us to solve our own tickets without help from the other employees.
Why would you encourage other students to try an apprenticeship?
Well, it's really awesome. It takes us from just learning in school to a whole other level of having experience in an actual career path. And especially how much we're learning by working and troubleshooting on ourselves. And also, it's learning how to have a work ethic, I think. Because we're in the company, we're expected to be held to certain standards.
This question's for both Parker and David. What things have surprised you the most about your apprenticeship/job?
Yeah, I would say the thing that's because they're putting us directly into working on the tickets and everything. It's really incredible how much more you can do, especially because there's only 2 apprentices and they're investing so much into us and working with us directly. It's really incredible how much they're investing in us.
So I have this thing that I think I'm always really smart when I get a new job. I feel like I'm the smartest person in the team, and I'm like, yes, I'm going to be really good at this job. And then I realize that I'm the dumbest person in the room. There's so much in cybersecurity that you can learn that at the very end of the day, you just think that you don't know anything. You come in with a specialty. For example, I started with just basic IT. I knew how to take apart a computer, and I felt I was the smartest person in the room. I thought I was going to make a living. I was going to become rich. And then I realized that nobody's building computers anymore. You just buy a new laptop every time it breaks. So I'm like, okay, better learn a new job. Okay, where do you go? You go into security. All right, live security, just responding to different security alarms, different events. And again, you feel like you're the smartest person in the room, and then you deal with all these issues that are coming about, and you're like, oh. I'm now a security engineer for American Express, and I feel so proud of myself. I'm like, I'm one of the smartest people in this team. I'm going to do amazing. There's nothing that's going to stop me. And then all these projects get thrown at me. I'm like, I don't know any of this. Please train me. Please buy more training. Help, help, help. So that's by far one of the most amazing things and surprising things about my career, especially cybersecurity, is that as smart as you think you are, there's always going to be somebody smarter, or there's always something that's going to challenge you that will make you want to learn more.
If all of you guys would like to share what's the hardest/worst problem that you've worked on in your career so far?
First, okay. I think the hardest problem that I worked on is that there are just not enough security professionals to address what we need to get done. And I think that's the biggest challenge I face every day.
For me, the biggest challenge was catching up to all my colleagues and my coworkers in terms of cybersecurity. I had a lot to learn. I still have a lot to learn. So for me, the challenging part has been, the cybersecurity aspect of my job and learning all of the technical side of cybersecurity, all the tools, what they do, how to configure them, all that kind of stuff is very, very new to me. So learning all of that has been the most challenging part for me.
For me, it's by far making sure that whatever I build, whatever I learn, works. I've always had there's always a big challenge at work where, okay, we need to solve this problem. And the challenge is, how do you solve that problem? And then once you've figured out, okay, we're going to do this and this is going to solve it, how do you make sure that that problem, that resolution actually works? That tool that you just deployed, how do you make sure that it's effective, that you've actually deployed it? And once you figured out that it's effective, how do you make sure that the people use it, that your security analyst? So you have so many challenges that you have to face as a security analyst and a security engineer, that you want to make sure that the tool works. And so we're a global company. We're, I don't know, so many thousand employees, but we're based out of all over the world. So my job is to deploy a tool that is going to provide security visibility for everybody in the world. It doesn't matter what language, so I have to ignore different language barriers. There's no detection for how people speak. It's more about how people interact and what they're doing on their day-to-day basis, or what is going on their machine. And then again, I have to make sure that I provide something for the user so that they don't get compromised. And I want to make sure that they can continue doing their job. And if the user cannot do their job because their machine got hacked, that's something that I need to resolve and need to fix so that doesn't happen in the future. Or I have a tool that I've deployed that is not working correctly and I need to fix that. So that's a constant challenge that I have on a daily basis, is making sure that it works effectively.
So I think working in this industry in general is just challenging. I think that, you are facing a new challenge every single day, whether it's a new threat, it's an attack. I mean, I can be very anecdotal and talk about, 5 years ago when literally a DDoS attack hit the front door of the company that I was working for, and it broke all records. It broke records for the size and scale and scope of a DDoS attack. We can talk about, going into a brand new company, looking at the security program and going, wow, we don't have visibility into anything. We're not doing things properly at all, and now we need to completely rip out the program and rebuild it entirely. But really, frankly, that's why I'm doing this, is because it's interesting, it's a challenge, it's a problem to solve, it's not, it's not static, it's not uniform. So, yes, you're gonna have those, crazy times where all of a sudden you have 2 data breaches at the same time and you're trying to go and respond to both of them and investigate both of them, and oh, there's a malware outbreak that happens at the same time. It's to that point where, I'm taking off my director hat, rolling up my sleeves, and actually going and doing some real work with the analysts and with the engineers to go and say all hands on deck to try and go and clean this mess up. But other times it's really just, trying to outthink your opponent. You're playing this massive game of chess or Risk or whatever it is, and we have to constantly be educating ourselves and building out that program and changing, and evolving, and growing. So those are the challenges that we face every day.
So for me, the most challenging thing has been adjusting to a professional environment, because at school they kind of hold your hand and take you step by step through every problem. And if you can't figure something out, there's always someone there to help you immediately. And they do help you in the professional environment, but you're expected to take the initiative to problem solve on your own. And also balancing school and home life with the working hours, and just making sure that I'm being well balanced, and being ready to work every day.
While we're on the topic, could you all share what the biggest obstacle you've had to overcome in this course is?
I suppose the biggest obstacle for me was just getting hired as an apprentice in the first place, being able to stand out from the other people who were applying. And I think I was able to do that by showing that how I had learned what I learned so far through my own initiatives, and being a well-rounded person.
I think, not having the formalized secondary education, higher education, I think was, how do I put this? It was an obstacle. It was something that I had to get past. But now that I'm further along in cybersecurity and I'm building my own teams and I'm hiring in my own teams, I want people that come from all different walks of life. Jen's husband works for me and he has his PhD. But then David is one of our strongest security analysts, and he didn't go through formalized education. Sorry, engineer. He's got a big head now. Anyway, so I want to find people from all walks of life. I want to have a very diverse group. Kathleen and I were talking earlier about making sure that you don't want everyone to think the same way, because then everyone will draw the same conclusion. If there's an attack going on, everyone's going to go and look and go, oh, I know exactly what that attack is. I would rather have somebody that's gone through higher education, got those degrees. I'd rather have somebody that's come out of the military, has that kind of mentality, or law enforcement. I'd rather have people that didn't go through formalized education. But for me, it was a bit of an obstacle. I did have to go and change some minds. I had to prove myself to people that, even though I didn't go and get that formalized education, I could do these jobs. I could grow through these jobs as well.
I absolutely agree with you. That's by far one of the biggest challenges that I've had, is that it's actually 2 pieces, actually. The first one is trying to prove yourself. The other piece, trying to prove yourself in a world where everybody's much older than you. Specifically in the cybersecurity community, everybody's typically around 10 to 15 years older than you, and when you try to show out, it's absolutely not in my current role. Everybody is very respectful when I speak out, but in former roles, you try to speak out, and it's very difficult because you're the youngest person in the room. You have least skill because of or at least they think you have the least skill because you're the youngest person in the room. So some of the challenges that I have to face is I have to act older than I really am. I mean, I'm wearing a suit. I normally, you can talk to everybody else in this, that really knows me. I do not like wearing a suit normally, but when I need to wear a suit, I'm going to put it on, and I'm going to be very mature about it. I still have the mentality of somebody your age. I'm only 22 years old, so I still want to go out and have my own fun. I act like a child sometimes, but when I need to act like an adult, I'm more than willing to act the part. And it's very important that I do so that people can actually listen to me, and so that they don't think that I'm just some kid that's just always moving around. So I think that's by far one of the biggest challenges that I've had, or obstacles.
So kind of I've had formal training, but it wasn't in the field related to cybersecurity. So that's been challenging. It's been training by firefighters on the job training, taking different certification classes. So it's just been a lot of overwhelming training, and I've got to be able to retain that and then go and teach that to the employees at SRP. So that's been really challenging. And I can also relate to, having that confidence to speak up with my peers. I feel like they're all so much further ahead of me, and they're so much more skilled and they're more knowledgeable. And so sometimes it's really hard to speak out and to really have that confidence in myself that, I belong there and this is where I should be, and I am knowledgeable, and I do bring a lot of value to our team. So that's been another challenge for me personally in this journey that I've had in cybersecurity.
I think for me, work-life balance has been the biggest challenge. It's funny that you mentioned carving out work-life balance. There's so much on fire all the time, and there's such a big problem to solve. It's really easy for me, and I imagine many other people in cyber, to try to take all of it on, and it's just not possible. So you can choose to see it as a comedy or a tragedy, and I really enjoy finding people that can find the comedy and the levity and the joy in solving the problems that we're solving. But having some balance in life has been my biggest challenge.
Okay, we have around 10 minutes left until we move on to the interactive. So I'm just going to have each of the panelists go around and share either what project they're currently working on, or if they have any advice that they'd like to share.
So my most immediate project is that I'm working on a presentation for a chapter meeting coming up in the beginning of December, and I'm going to revisit a hack that I learned. So I learned the mouse jack hack, which is basically taking control of your machine without you knowing, fingers crossed. And I'm going to be doing a presentation on that, so it's my most immediate project.
So in addition to running the security awareness program, I'm also on the data loss protection program. So our DLP tool is not working out for us anymore and not as great as we had hoped. So we are in the process of trying to find another DLP tool. It basically is a tool that's looking for sensitive information that's leaving the company. We have a lot of HIPAA data, we have customer information, credit cards, all sorts of sensitive information that cannot leave the company. So a lot of it is unintentional data loss. Currently we are just at a point where the tool is only able to watch the information as it leaves, and then we can interact with the employee after. But we are looking for a tool that's actually going to block when an employee tries to send information that's not encrypted or something that shouldn't be leaving the company. It's actually going to block that information from leaving. We are dabbling in Office 365, so that's all cloud. We've got to find a way to be able to monitor some of that stuff as well. There's certain information that should not leave SRP on-prem. It should never go into the cloud. We have a lot of sick data just in regards to the critical infrastructure being a power and utility company. So that's huge, and that is my current huge project that I'm working on with a couple other of my employees or team members. Career advice, I would say just don't get discouraged. You're going to have a plan for what you think your life's going to look like. And if you would ask me when I was in high school where I would be at 29, I would definitely not have said sitting right here talking about my job in cybersecurity. So just don't get discouraged if your life's not going according to how you have it planned and how you have envisioned it, because it's probably going to turn out way better than you ever imagined. So that's all I have to say.
One of the current projects that I'm working on is astrophotography. So I'm trying to learn how to take really good pictures of the Milky Way, the moon, and the stars in Phoenix. So why is this important? Why am I out talking about a cybersecurity project? Because I'm very passionate about whatever gets brought up to me, I just want to get really good at it and just be passionate about it. So this is what I recommend to you. Have a work-life balance, which is why I bring astrophotography, but also whatever you want to learn, do it to the best of your abilities and try to learn it as much as possible before you give up on it. It's very difficult to take pictures of the stars in Arizona. There is so much light pollution. I'm running literal mirrors and filters, glasses over my camera so that I can try to take pictures. But I'm trying to discover new ways of how to take those pictures by not only like buying new cool tools, but also understand the physics and the science behind different wavelengths. So again, I want to encourage you to be as passionate as you can of whatever tool or task or career you want to be involved in. Don't just stop because you found one obstacle. Try to overcome it. Try to ask for knowledge. Just go out to the community. See if, for me, I'll try to go out to astrophotography meetups and see what other people are talking about, how to get pictures in Phoenix. So be passionate. If you don't like your job, you have to be looking into a different location. Make sure whatever you choose, whatever career you do like it, and don't let anybody else tell you what you should do in life. You do what you want to do. It doesn't matter if you want to be a senior or if you want to be a garbage truck driver. Heck, those garbage trucks are super awesome to drive. If I have the ability to say that. So whatever you do, be good at it and learn as much as you can and be passionate about it.
So David talked a little bit, and everyone's kind of brought up a little bit of work-life balance and talking about that. So, a project that I'm working on right now is a karambit. It's actually a knife that goes over your index finger and comes out the back right here. So that's one of the projects I'm working on right now. But from a cybersecurity perspective, I'm actually, does everyone know what a Raspberry Pi is? Okay, so I've got a few Pi projects. I always have a few things going. Obviously got the retro Pi setup where we can play old Nintendo games and old Sega games and stuff like that. But I actually have to build for my sister. She asked for it basically last night. In her house, she's a huge Minnesota Vikings fan. I'm going to build my Raspberry Pi to tie into an RSS feed, so every time the Vikings score, purple and gold lights will flash throughout her house and tell her what the score is. So the little Raspberry Pi that big gets stopped back in the corner, and the lights are going to be all over kind of her home bar area where she's watching. Raspberry Pi to mimic the environment of what Costa Rica was like. Temperature control, environmental controls, like humidity, things like that. And she kept it all controlled, and she could watch her frogs through her Raspberry Pi. It was a really cool project. Think about that. Look at what you have around your house that you want to go and just hack it with your Raspberry Pi and automate it.
I would just look for ways to incorporate whatever you want to do in your life and everything you do. So like last week, I had a project where I was creating a presidential campaign for a body part. It was an assignment in anatomy. So I decided to create a website instead of just creating a simple flyer or whatever. And that really sets you apart in school. It helps. And it also helps you practice all the skills that you're learning for your future career. So I had to set up an Apache server and get it running using Amazon Web Servers, and then I set up a URL and got that running, and then I set up an SSL certificate. And so you do all these things just for a simple project like that, and you can learn so much more than just what the assignment had you learn.
Before we move on to the interactive that Rachel has for us, I'd like to say thank you to the panelists for coming in today. Can we all give them a hand?
Question. If there's any questions from
do you guys have any questions that you guys like to get answered right now?
I teach middle school computers, and I've had quite a few kids that have gone on to your school. And I was wondering, how much time are you in your classroom, and how much time are you at your apprenticeship?
So my apprenticeship right now is Wednesday through Friday, and we go for 4 hours every day. So we leave at 12:10, we go eat lunch, and then we start from 1 to 4 or 5. And so it's taking place of the cybersecurity class we have at school. And so we're not missing any class time for our academics. So it's really awesome.
Do you have any more questions?
I have a question. It wouldn't be on National Cybersecurity Career Awareness Week if each one of you didn't perhaps leave the audience with one or two things that in terms of being the most cyber safe and cyber secure they could be. So if you had one or two things that you wanted to tell them, what would you have them leave with tonight?
Always mouse over the link on an email and see where it's going before you click it.
That's really good. Yeah, or right-click and copy, and then paste and inspect it before you actually go to it. If you're really feeling ambitious, go and throw it in the sandbox and see what it actually does. I think the one thing that I will say is, if you're on your test computer at home, and you should have a test computer, play with malware. Click on it, see what it does. I mean, infect a computer that you know can be infected though. Give yourself a safe environment. Maybe you build your own sandbox out of your Raspberry Pi. Maybe you have an old laptop laying around that you go and throw Windows 7 on and infect it. Then wipe it, reload it, and see what it did. Yeah, that's really where I'd say go.
Talk to strangers. Talk to strangers. Just
You're giving some of the best advice.
so the reason I say that is one of the challenges that we have in security is people do not know how to talk and communicate with each other. They struggle with either communicating their ideas with other people, or they don't know how to express their project. So one of the challenges that we have at work is they have this cool idea that we want to implement, but they don't know how to explain it to us. They are very technical, but one of the easiest things to fix that is communicate with people. And don't argue with them, or necessarily argue with them. Try to learn more about them. Try to communicate with them, and be more social with the people around you. I know it's always been a fear of like, hey, don't talk to strangers. Also know when to talk to people. But that will come with time. You'll learn the hard way, to be honest. But just communicate with people. Share. Try to show off your ideas. At security meetups, they're always looking for presenters. It doesn't matter the age. Say, hey, I got this cool thing that I'm working on. Can I talk about it? And that's how you'll build your presentation skills, your soft skills, and slowly progress to that. So just talk to strangers.
Along with talk to strangers, become very familiar with the principles of influence and social engineering, because that is how attackers are going to get you to do something that you normally wouldn't do. So I'll just challenge you all to go home, and if you don't already know about the 6 principles of influence, go educate yourself on those, because that's how attackers get their employees. And another thing that we always really like to talk to our employees about is obviously don't reuse your password, never use the same password, and get a password manager. It makes your life so much easier, because as you get older, you're going to have more and more accounts that you need, and remembering 50 different passwords that are 15 characters long is going to be very challenging. So passphrases and password managers.
Those are all great points. I was going to say segment. So that goes along with having a password manager and having a different password for every one of your accounts. If one of your accounts is hacked, they won't be able to, or they most likely won't be able to get into your other accounts because they won't have that information. So by having complex passwords that are saved in a password manager, you only have to remember one password, and that's make sure that one's really secure. But if you segment all of your accounts, your data privacy applies to your networks as well. If we want to get a little bit more technical, you want to separate your IoT toaster from your home network, for example, right? So segment and complex passwords.
Is there any more questions?
Just one comment. Suggestion, not just random strangers, but all people that have name tags, like Starbucks, Walmart, the grocery store. Start there. They actually have to listen and engage. It's called customer service. So just from the adult perspective, keep it random, but people with name tags have to talk to you.
Do you want to move on with the activity now?
Sure. And panelists, you're welcome to stay up here. It's great. What I wanted to do is tie in this idea of cybersecurity as more than just something technical, and how cybersecurity is something that addresses a lot of business processes. If you just give me a second, I'm going to get my slides pulled up.
If you guys want to get more food while we're waiting, feel free to.
Not necessarily.
Oh, yeah. It's very impressive. And in fact, the capabilities this year just became worthwhile. I don't know what the rate is about their cost, but yeah, oh, yes.
It's not boring, it's just, but, oh. I was like, you're not.
Well, he is.
That's what I would call it.
So we can pull everybody back together, and then we'll have some time again at the end for conversations before we can wrap up for the rest of the evening. So I love that we have almost an all ages event. It's a really neat opportunity for me. I feel like I remember when I was in high school, there's so many things that your teachers work hard to prepare you for the future, but there's still so much adult stuff that never gets talked about, like balancing your checkbook or or voting, or paying your taxes. All these very concrete, real things that we need to do as an adult. And so it's part of what I wanted to tie in today when we're talking about cybersecurity. So, a little bit about me, but what I do, I spend a lot of time doing, there we go, is encouraging people like yourself to get into the career, right? So I apologize, I'm blocking some of you, but there's a lot more to these careers than just computers and servers, right? We had one panelist talking about how she translates that information and helps communicate that information to people that aren't working in IT. There's a lot more that you can do in IT or cybersecurity specifically than just playing with servers all day, although those careers are definitely there. It is indeed a team sport, and there's a lot of communication and collaboration that are involved in being a strong cybersecurity professional. And we heard a lot about that on the panel. And so I do like memes. So this framework right here, it's a lot of text, but essentially because cybersecurity wasn't a career 10 years ago, there is an organization through the federal government that has kind of created a framework for what these careers will look like. So to try to help people like yourself and to try to help employers like Sean to to put together the structure that they need in order to figure out how to hire people like yourself, right? And they fall under different categories, and some of those categories include investigating or having oversight, right? So not all of these are going to be people that are hands on keyboard, programming things every day. It's a lot of solving puzzles, right? It's a lot of figuring things out, and that can look different in a lot of ways. So when we talk about figuring things out, a lot of times that involves a tabletop exercise. So it can be a team of people sitting down and talking about what that infrastructure looks like, how many computers do we have, and how do those computers attach to other aspects of our networks, and making plans and making decisions on how to respond when something bad happens. And that ties into election infrastructure, right? So when I mentioned we don't always talk about what we need to do as part of our civic engagement as adults. Part of that is election infrastructure. And I'm sure how many people here have heard of the headlines about voting machines getting hacked, or the Russians hacked our elections, or Cambridge Analytica and the data and Facebook ads and misinformation campaigns. Those are all part of the greater election infrastructure. Those types of issues are a part of cybersecurity overall when it comes to elections. So what I wanted to do, because what's a cybersecurity career, I wanted to use elections as an example of a type of cybersecurity career that you could get into, and give you an opportunity to think about that as a real world example. So there's all kinds of systems involved. There's those physical machines that you vote on when you go in. There are the machines that have your ballot in them, right? But then there's also the process, right, of those paper ballots that it's kind of like when you go to the bank and they have the bags of money, right? And only armed guards can carry the bags of money, right? There are only certain people that are allowed to carry those paper ballots and make sure that they're taken from one location to another location. And that's part of the greater security infrastructure. That's part of what we're talking about today. And when you think about the complexity of that system, right? So we have Philadelphia Security, which is a massive global enterprise. They have probably over 30,000 people work for them. That's a large, small town, really. We have American Express Global Business Travel. That's a company that employs, in the 15,000. These are large companies. They're very complex environments, but their environments are set up in a cohesive, singular way. And so it can be very easy to hack something like that if it doesn't have the security processes in place. Whereas our elections are very diverse and dynamic. For example, in the state of Arizona, every county runs their own election system. So every county is going to have a different setup. So it's a level of complexity. I have a kind of a simple graph here, but for example, they have a different system for voting, which means that those are all different systems that would be hard to hack, right? And in comparison, there's like 14,000 McDonald's. If you think about like how big that is. And so when we talk about the Russians hacking our elections, for them to be able to do that, across the entire country. That would be a very difficult thing for them to physically hack our elections, right? But this is the type of problems and the type of solutions that a cybersecurity professional for the elections infrastructure would try to address. And going into a little bit more about why we have paper ballots versus other organizations. I'm going to pass out a little flyer here, if you guys can pass these around. What we're talking about is individually within each of the precincts, this is part of the process. And how, when you go in and you vote, and then what happens to your ballot after that, this is part of that greater business process that is the elections infrastructure. And so I don't want you to be intimidated to think that a cybersecurity career has to be me on a keyboard writing code. That's definitely a great way to go about a cybersecurity career. But then there's also those people that manage each one of those processes. There's also those people that oversee the entire process in and of itself. So there's a lot of ways to go about that. How many of you would say that you're more on the side of wanting to do the computers and the servers and that type of thing? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you don't want to do anything with cyber and just want to do something artistic or literary writing? Okay. Trying to pick like the complete opposite. What are some of the other things you guys are interested in? Robotics, okay. Yeah? Anyone else? What about you two up here? Nothing. Okay. Hey, that gets boring after a while. I'll just warn you. Yeah. Well, that's it. There's a lot to learn on YouTube. There are New Boston is another option as well. But essentially, the idea here is that there is so much more to this that even we can't predict today, right? When we look at robotics isn't what it is 5 years ago, what it is today, and what it's going to be in another 10 years is something else entirely. So just a quick little overview, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to address them afterwards. And thanks for coming out tonight, and see you soon.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
We also have some of the